Every year, all those mainstream magazines release their top 100 best songs or top whatever best albums of the year lists, and every year we collectively cringe about how they have nothing to do with rock and roll and heavy metal, and if somehow it includes any of the rock or metal entries, it still shows that those who compile those lists have no idea what actually is going on.
Wow!
But in all honesty, this year everything is different, because Rolling Stone just dropped a list which makes the Grammy Award nomination committee look like metal elitists. So recently, the Rolling Stone magazine released the 100 best albums of 2024 list. Well, that's a lot of albums. That's not just your mere top 10, top 15 list. That's 100 albums from this year alone. And just for the record, I have to point out that I actually went through 100 of those albums, and I didn't know the names of 90% of not only the records themselves, but of the artists included in that list. But if we're being very honest, I mostly listen to hard rock and metal, so most likely I'm just not the target audience for this list. But anyways, after that I actually listened to top songs from the top 10 list, and a couple of random tracks from the overall top 100 list, and I just have to say that in my opinion, most of those have nothing to do with music, let alone good music.
What you listening to, son?
I don't think you like it.
Well, why not?
But once again, music taste is very subjective, so let's just assume that I'm not really the target audience for this list, and those are great albums, they're just not my cup of tea. But then I went through that list once again, specifically looking for hard rock and metal entries, because the thing is that I truly believe that 2024 was actually an incredible year for metal, and not only for us metalheads or for metal elitists. It was a great year for metal, pushing the boundaries of mainstream. We got Gojira performing at the Olympics. We got several metal albums making it to top of the Billboard charts. We got Knocked Loose performing at Jimmy Kimmel's show, and a lot of other things.
Hi, this is Tim from As I Lay Dying,
which were putting metal on the agenda of the mainstream, and everyone was talking about those. And so among those 100 best albums of 2024, the Rolling Stone magazine actually did manage to include some metal albums. Well, metal album, yeah. But the choice of it made me question it even more. So the only metal album of 2024 worthy of your attention, according to the Rolling Stone magazine, is Kerry King's From Hell I Rise. And this, in my opinion, is a rather strange choice. And by the way, this is not to say anything bad about Kerry King's solo debut. I mean, I spoke about this album quite a lot on the show before, upon its release, and it's actually in the shortlist for the best metal album of 2024 according to the viewers of this channel, which, by the way, if you still haven't voted, go ahead and vote for it via the link in the description to this comment. But the whole idea that this is the only album included in the top 100 list of best albums of 2024 from the entire metal community seems very strange at the very least, because this choice was clearly not made based on popularity or whatever has been spoken of the most in the world. As I said, there were quite a lot of metal events and albums that would make it to the mainstream this year, and with all due respect to Kerry King's solo debut, it was not one of them. And this decision was clearly not based on whatever the most popular thing in metal is this year, as not even one metal artist who's been nominated for the 2024 Grammy Awards is on this list. Not even Knocked Loose, who are literally one of the most spoken of metal band in the mainstream today. I never give a fuck! And the last but not least, this decision was clearly not based on the musicality of Kerry King's solo album, because even Kerry King himself acknowledges that this album is not a breakthrough record in any way. This is a direct continuation of whatever Slayer have been doing in the last decade or so of their existence. And on it, Kerry King decided to not reinvent the wheel and give his loyal fans exactly what they know him for. And so it looks like the only reason why they decided to include Kerry King's solo album on this list, in addition to the whole fact that they simply had to include a metal album on it, but they wanted to make sure it's nowhere near the top 10, as they placed it in number 93, I think, on the list. But still, it looks like the only reason why they actually did that was to look edgy, as even by looking at the description underneath that entry, we'll see that they constantly compare Kerry King to Dr. Dre and use a ridiculous amount of quite unnecessary swear words, purposefully underlining every cliche about metal you can possibly think of. And even more, if we look closer on this list, we'll see that it looks like Rolling Stone magazine specifically used this only criteria of being edgy when selecting the albums to make it to their top 100 list, which I imagine very much undermines the euphoria of being included here for any of the artists on this list. And once again, I want to underline that I hope that you don't think that I'm trying to bash Kerry King's solo debut album. Not in any way. It actually has all the chances of being the best metal album according to the Metal Pilgrim community this year. And even more, while recording this episode, I realized that I might sound very much like Rick Beato here. But once again, I simply cannot understand how the flip do Rolling Stone magazine editors choose their best of lists. As in case of all the other lists by the mainstream magazines, at least it looks like they select them by the popularity, or whatever has been spoken of the most, or whatever is the most family friendly by trying to incorporate all the different subgenres of music you can possibly think of. But the choice of the 100 best albums on this list, it looks like, has been made specifically to provoke people. Which, now I'm thinking about it, since I'm recording this episode, most likely they have actually succeeded in. But anyways, what do you guys personally think about all those lists? And do you think that it is absolutely fair that Kerry King's From Hell I Rise was the only metal album included in the top 100 best albums of 2024 by Rolling Stone magazine? Please let us know in the comments. And I hope you guys don't mind my angry rant about this, but I really felt like we have to talk about this.
What was his point? I have no idea.
But anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys, and we will prevail. Slava Ukraini!